What's up, everyone? I hope you can hear me. Been trying to do this for years and years and years, but I finally have a stable job, and so I'm able to invest week over week, month over month into my indoor farming personal projects. I've been scrambling financially my whole life, finally settled down and get to finish a project because I don't run out of money when something inevitably doesn't work. So this is my home test farm. I'm Arash Amini. I've done a lot of indoor farm designing, dozens of farms designed, several built. 10 years, I have an indoor farming company at the cutting edge of plant science. And this is an attempt to make the cheapest, simplest, and most versatile and most productive farming unit possible. Now, I'm on a patio, so that affects how I set it up. You could be on the grass, you could do a different greenhouse. It's not about the pieces, it's about the roles they play. It's about the components, it's about having the stages in your farming ecosystem. So inside, I'm about, I don't know, 75, 85% done, working through the kinks. Brand new design, never been done before. Uh, Excuse the mess, but such is life. But basically, what we got in here, you could do so many things in here. This is a cheap Amazon greenhouse, 200 bucks roughly. And by cheap for a greenhouse, that's extremely cheap. Uh, they start at $1,000 anywhere else I could find with like aluminum polycarb. So first things first. Second, I got a stock tank in there, 45 gallon. You could do 100 gallon if you want to grow aquaponics. That's what I want to do. Right now, technically, it's growing vermiponics. So it's about what's powering the nutrition cycle for the plants, if you will, what's producing the fertilizer. In time, uh, I'm going to be feeding my worms. The worms are going to produce baby fish, baby worms. They're going to feed my fish. The uh, bacteria is going to convert the fish pee into nitrogen based fertilizer, and the worms are going to break down the solids into a broad base of micro minerals, and they recirculate through my vertical plant system. So in this design, the biofilter is separate. The fish tank is about 50 gallons, and I have, what is that, uh, 12 square feet, 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 12 square feet of grow space. No lights. Um, because it's aquaponics, I have a heavy duty air pump and a backup solar pump in case the power goes out, and very simple uh, water flow. So the water comes out, spits into. I gotta dial in all these proportions, but basically trying to get the solids to go immediately on into the biofilter and have that be one continuous loop, and then the water column should filter out for solids by the time it goes up to the top of the water tanks and then or the plant trays, and it'll trickle down, mostly liquid, and there'll be beneficial bacteria throughout. They were cycling in there, but I had a catastrophic failure. The trays got lopsided because of water flow and topped over in the middle of the night, and so my whole tank emptied onto the patio. But again, it's not a big problem. If I was on the soil, if this is my house, I'm renting, I would probably have put this in the grass, and I probably would have dug in a koi pond for like 100, 150 bucks. But patio, this is the situation I'm in, right? So what's going to be cool about this is the plant trays are going to be covered. I'm trying to figure out the best biomedia. So it's like either right now I have think vermiculite in there, and I'm not a fan. It's a little too fine, a little too light. I'm trying, what was the other one? Perlite, which is a little bigger, and then of course hydrogen clay, expanded clay pebbles. So those will sit in the grow beds, basically blocking sunlight from hitting the flowing nutrient-rich water. Lowers the evaporation. It lowers algae buildup, and then when you put your plant in a pot into it, the roots can come into the darkness, which they like. They can grow under light, but it's not. That's I think some plants are more sensitive to that than others. Now, I'm not an expert in any of these pieces. If anything, I'm an expert in now, after just endless trial and failure, is integrating and designing all these pieces. So this is like a mini wastewater treatment facility. It's like a biological recirculating wastewater treatment plant. And the output is going to be trout and all the veggies I can possibly eat. I want to grow a lot of like medical herbs. I don't think you could grow cannabis. You'd have to be really advanced and go well beyond the nitrogen fertilizer from the fish. But anything leafy green. And I'm going to try some greenhouse, hydroponic plants like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, that kind of stuff. And see how much supplemental lighting I'll need to do that. I'm definitely going to grow like mints, stuff that just like take over and grow and proliferate. And I'm definitely going to try like different botanical herbs that grow slower and are hardier. My idea is I'm figuring out what kind of, so in the tray, there's media, and then you got to put your plant in the media. However, you could just sow seeds right directly in there, but it kind of causes problems down the line once you're pulling them out and you want to. So I like to put them in a pot of some sort and then put them in. That way that you can take them out and put them in more easily, and you can figure out your spacing a lot more easily. But I might do away with that. Who knows? So in those pots, I'll be back. In those pots, I plan on putting coca coir and 2-inch net pots, coca coir seed. This should provide all the adequate water, humidity, and oxygen levels to the roots, to the plants, to the seeds, and to the. Well, I guess that's really all you need to do. Um, Yeah, it would be interesting to just directly seed into the system, but seeds can be so fickle without, they need to be like coated in humidity. And so without a layer of water completely around them, they don't germinate typically. Um, and so you need to have some media there to transport the water molecules from wherever they are to the seed. And then, of course, you can't just drown the seed. So anyway, all those details will get figured out, and I'll share those. Obviously, I can start documenting this. I'm just starting, man. I'm sick of fucking wanting to make this perfect. This is life, and it is what it is. And after all this equipment I've bought over the years and done, I'm just doing it with what I have, and I couldn't be happier. I have my $200 Walmart iPhone on some whack ass tripod and my Chinese greenhouse. The thing about China is the Chinese people are gonna save America. I mean, because they're the ones manufacturing all this stuff, right? Uh, the Chinese government obviously has deep, dark elements in it, like all governments do, like all organizations do. The thing about China is, though, they're producing, like, this is a big deal to me. This greenhouse, it was 170, 180 bucks on Amazon, another 75 for shipping. So it came over just over 225 to deliver. And oh, there's thunder in the distance. I love that. Um, you can't buy a greenhouse that cheap in America. And it's pretty not bad. Now, albeit mine is up against the wall and behind bush, next to bushes and that thing, so it's pretty well covered. The thing is, though, they're at war with us because they made this thing so hard to assemble. It was insane. I mean, I always joke to my wife, you know how the Chinese hate us? You know how the Chinese hate us? They'll manufacture anything we ask them to. It like doesn't matter how vile and dumb and stupid it is. They'll be like, yes, of course, we'll take your money. No matter what crazy toxic chemical concoction some asshole from Florida wants to sell on telemarketing ads across the nation, they will just manufacture it. Like, do you ever wonder? They're just like sitting in their factories, like packing giant, obscene, like sex toys, and they're like, what they must think of the average American from their view is like they don't deserve what they have. They must think we're just so unworthy. But hey, there's enough resources to go around. and I welcome a multipolar planet. I think that's the future. I think it's got to happen. I think it's gonna happen. Hell, it's happening. Um, but we're going through unparalleled Earth changes. We're going through society, social changes. I think we're going through conscious changes, like consciousness at the individual level. Um, it's unbelievable, and you're seeing in real time like old institutions that are just dying to hold on to relevancy and power crumble. It's ridiculous, and new ones are forming. You don't maybe know it unless you're part of the institutions, but there are people all over the planet working very hard on scalable solutions. And I'm one of them for sure on the vertical farming side. My background is in physics, which I got as a poet, and I forced my way into the physics department at UIC. I just like threatened them uh, with a suicide vest and like let me into your physics class, and definitely got on a watch list after saying that on the algorithm. Not that I'm not on all of them, but I brute forced my way in because I want to get into clean tech, scaling clean tech, and now here we are. After that, I got into aquaponics because I learned about business, and I had a 6-month window where I could, after graduation, where I could figure my shit out. And someone happened to invest 140 grand into an aquaponics startup idea I had at the time. And it was only because I had pursued it and made a plan and pitched it that the conversation occurred and then the check cleared, you know. But from that line, from that moment, I've learned so much about aquaponics. And, I'm not an expert, but I've failed a lot and I've gone through more designs than most people. What I'm surprised at, I was telling my wife, coming back to the aquaponic and greenhouse industry, there's no innovation. I left in 2015 or so, really in earnest 2012, 2014. Aquaponics truly 2013, 2012. After the world didn't end, I'm like, what's the point? No, but I switched into hydroponics and then commercial and so on. And I've had 3 failed startups. I've sold my last one I should say, my last one got sold to Wilder Greens, and you know, I ended up studying, discovering this little piece of biophysics and wanted to turn it into a business. And didn't really have PhD material, so I went the private route and I fell in love with business. It's really fucking cool. It's unfair, but it's very cool. And, anytime you dig into like why you should be growing your own food, it gets really dark really fast. Um, economic instability, right? Uh, Political and social unrest, um, more biological, outbreaks on the horizon eventually, which are going to lead to supply chain logistics. You got inflation and food prices, right? Um, and I'm not saying that this unit is going to provide all your calories for a day, but it should, in theory, provide all your like supplementation needs for a day. Nutrients. It should really add to your nutrient levels, because what you're really growing are medicines. What we're trying to commercialize what we're on the cusp of launching at one of my other companies is a 100% plant-based vitamins mix, and that we grow ourselves. And like a lot went into that, man, a lot. And it's crazy. And the thing we have that nobody else has is the density. We can grow more plants per cubic foot than anybody else, and it's tricky. We've hit these benchmarks, but it's like getting it perfect to the point where you could, a benchmark, it is something this size is one thing. A benchmark, there's all endless engineering problems to solve. But what I've done here is like done all the calculations, so everything's sized appropriately because the ratios have to match and have to be adequate. So the fish have enough, specific surface area in biomedia for the bacteria. And by the way, did you know you should be using aqueous nitros nitrifying bacteria, and make sure that you're using worms in your bioreactor because they'll eat their own weight in waste every day or half their weight. And you need a specific volume of biomedia for a specific surface area to process the daily ammonia output of a species of fish, and that depends on how much you're feeding them. More food in, more waste out, and that depends on their growth rate because once you hit adulthood, you stop growing and your metabolism slows down, and um, all of these factors are like interlaced, just like a ecosystem. But by taking the optimizing for automation or balance, equilibrium, optimizing for equilibrium versus planting density, right? In the planting density of my commercial work, I have to make a very non equilibrium system. It's not an ecosystem by any stretch. It's a very like sterile lab, almost industrial lab situation, where everything is controlled for this very specific. And we get them in, we grow them, we get them out, and it's got to be cleaned, and because of the density and all these other issues. Um, this is not that. This should be working, and I've done this before, just a different shape, really, um, where I had the worms and the fish and the plants going really well. Um, this should be like hands off once it gets going. I haven't done aquaponics in years, so I have to like monitor the pH. Um, but you have to do that anyway, and I have to see truly how many pounds of fish can I get into this thing before it's cruel. You gotta treat your fish right. And so there's like a stocking density that I want to achieve that is maximizes abundance without an ease. You know what I mean? Because what I'm trying to get here is so that the water moves all the nutrients around on its own. The water moves the baby worms into the fish tank. The water moves the fish poop into the worm tank. The water moves the fish and worm waste turned into golden fertilizer to the plants. The plants remove that stuff for the fish, so the nitrogen, so that more can be produced, so that their ammonia can be converted, more of that can be converted. And if the right amount of each piece is there, then they naturally take care of each other, just like a pond, right? But what we're doing here is we're taking a pond and we're pulling out specific aspects of it and converting them into like modules that are in proportion and sized in such a way to maximize the output of the fish. Well, all three of them really, because the worms become the fish food. So, um, trout is like out of my wheelhouse. I've done tilapia only before. And tilapia, you can just give them whatever. They're like pigs. They're bottom feeders. They handle amazing range of water and pH and densities. Trout, I think, they need cleaner, cooler water and more space. So I don't know exactly what I'll be able to grow here, but what I do here should be able to be doubled with a 100-gallon tank in the next place that we move to. So I think all in, this is like about $1,000 worth of parts. Um, happy to list them as I go, or if you have any questions, I guess drop them in the comments and I'll just drop the links for what's relevant. I was just gonna wait until I kind of know not the final design, but like the design that finally works well, and then share that. I just felt the first drop of water on my giant head. Um, and yeah, the goal is like hyper nutritious, varied, and uh, hands off farming with like no dirt really. And I think I might get a cute little cart here, like a stand to put stuff, and have a little workspace. There's a rain barrel inside that's going to uh, catch rainwater and store it, and then I think hopefully modulate the temperature inside, keep it cooler in the daytime and hotter at the nighttime. The air inside there, we'll see. I don't know how the patio is going to affect because I have a galvanized steel tank, stocking tank, directly on top of the patio, and I did that specifically so that the patio would provide act like a heat sink and draw heat out of the metal tank and keep that water as cold as possible because mountain trout, rainbow trout like cooler water. Um, and then I put it in the shade for that, tucked away. And partially because I was worried this is too flimsy. Well, that's the door, but you know, it's pretty good. And I did it completely wrong. And partly because I wanted a lot more shade on it. It already gets good amount of light, but we'll see. This is my first time greenhouse farming. Okay, it's my first time like outdoor aquaponicing in eons. But it's not even aquaponics anymore. It's a new form of farming. This is what I was trying to get to, because you're growing the worms and you're driving the growth through the worms. You feed the worms, they feed everything else. It's so wild. And I haven't done it at this like intensity before, but I did. Holy shit, no. I had three of I it was practically the same size. Wow. It was just in a completely different arrangement, but and under lights, artificial lights. I used to have a company called Farm Tower Co. where I designed a mobile indoor farming system, and it worked really well for seedlings, veggies, and like leafy greens. And it was in that unit I discovered my liquid fertilizer invention and combined it with my biophysics discovery, bioengineering, what would you call it? Molecular engineering discovery. And it's at the core of why my commercial company is called Cellular Farms. If you go to cellularfarms.com, you'll see we're growing lab quality plants, but that's different. And this is going to be hopefully more fun. Um, some of the surprising things about this, though, when you assemble a greenhouse, be ready to abandon the instructions. Have two people because one person isn't enough. The way they make you do it, you put up a whole side first, and there's nothing holding it, and it literally under its own weight will just fall as soon as you bend over to pick up a tool, let alone if there's any wind whatsoever. So I ended up abandoning the instruction kit and setting up my own greenhouse my own way, all the framing first, and then I came in and I installed the um, greenhouse panels with Velcro tape. You can hear it or not. See? And so I just cut up these squares, put them around, plastered them. These side panels on the outside, those did slide in. I think the roof too slid in really easily. And make sure the frame bottom door, the side the door's on, make sure it's on the right side of the base because there's a little ledge that holds this door in place that's on the back side, right? Don't lose any of your bolts because you need them all. And watch your hands, man. These things are so sharp. The edges, they will slice you open. You'd be so shocked. I'm just getting over the last one. Um, and it's surprisingly good. It's got a vent, I could put a temperature controlled like fan in there if it gets too hot, but so far we're just entering summer and so far so good. Um, I have one tower in there, one shelving unit holding up three trays. Don't do that. I forgot. I've made this mistake years ago and I forgot. And the water can pool it like you have your shelving like this, and then you have your trays hanging off the edge. You're like, oh, get cheaper shelving. Oh, don't use, save resources. No, 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 because your water's got to come in on one side, so it can go down the bottom and then drop, and then go down, and then drop, and then go down. And so it needs to come in on one side and the top. And so at the beginning, it's just pooling on this side before it rushes out, and it'll just fall over like that if there's not enough coverage. So I just bought another one. So I can put two of them up and kind of make a bridge, and that'll ensure that never happens again. The system can't flood or overflow because it's a closed system. All the water that'll ever be in the system is in the fish tank. That's your water reservoir. And then when you turn the pumps on, and after equilibrium is reached, minutes later, you have your reservoir level minus your working volume level, and that amount of water that it dropped is the water that's continuously through the system, right? And so if something breaks, as long it's all gravity fed, so eventually it'll find its way back to the reservoir. Um, I am using hydroponic 1x4 Botanicare trays. They are more pricey, but I had them left over from another project at work. Um, so I think they're ideal. However, I don't know about that actually. I'm also using Botanicare or like hydroponic bulkhead fittings, 1/2 inch right now, and they let you put in risers and screens in them really easily. Um, and I think you need a 1.5 inch spade or bit to get those in. Double check when you buy that piece. It's either 1 1/4 or 1.5. Um, the thing is, there's a tray out by I think it's called Maxi Garden on Amazon. It's 2 foot by 4 foot, and it's meant to be like a working area where you could put 4 flats in and do your stuff. And it's just like a small plastic tray, and it's cheap. They do make I think a 1x4, so you could put two of your flats, this greenhouse flats, side by side and do your thing and like not get stuff all around you. I would do that. I'm staying out here until it starts pouring. Another couple minutes. Um, and do get a ground fault circuit interrupter. Those yellow things, if they get wet, they shut off. It's always good, just in case. And the pump I got um, is a pool lid cleaning pump. And so when your pool cover kind of gets rain on top and dips down, you put this thing in the center and it drains it off. It was cheap and it came with hosing, but it doesn't. The hosing is just a little too big for the other connectors. So I would just buy hydroponic pumps, tubing, fittings, and maybe even trays. But you don't need the trays. You could take the fittings and drill a hole through anything, and they'll fit airtight, watertight, as long as it's flat where the hole is. Um, but the tubing is like standard. So it fits in all the pumps, it fits in all the connectors. They have valves you can buy. All that stuff's kind of like figured out, and it's on the cheaper side of the hydroponic industry's equipment. It's so mass produced. The air pumps are actually hydroponic as well. They're used for keeping reservoirs like agitated and oxygenated, like mixed and fresh. And so you can buy those nice big, they're like mini commercial air pumps for like 40, $50, and that should give you enough air for a long time. I don't know what my oxygen DO dissolved oxygen levels are changing, so I'm getting a probe to test that over time. I'd like to know at full clip, what is it at, and how I got to know when the fish are in their activity. Oh, interesting thing to know: as we enter war with Russia, you can run this system. My goal is here, okay? My grand goal is to generate a following, a community. I'm going to take these clips, I'm going to take these YouTube videos, clip them, put them on TikTok, and I'm going to try to get a deal with Lowe's, okay? So that they can resell all the shit in their house. Obviously, it'll get, better packaged, but this is just, if you could buy it on Amazon, you could buy it in Lowe's. You know what I'm saying? It's not that crazy. And you can get worms and goldfish from Petco. And the goldfish in particular, they're koi, carp, pretty easy to, well, they're cheap and they're pretty sturdy, hardy. Um, so if you don't know what you're doing and the temperature or the pH swings in the system, they happen to die. Unfortunately, it's not a crippling financial loss like 2 inch, tilapia mailed to you from some hatchery might be. And so you can start your system up with them and make sure everything's good. Now, the interesting thing is you could just raise koi and their poop will power this and pee will power this whole thing. And they love the worms. Also, if you take the worms and you put them in a tray and bake them like under lights, under just out, they will dry to a crisp, and then you grind them in a coffee blender and you get like really, really good tilapia grade uh, uh, fish food, high protein, high fat, like very close to what is ideal for tilapia. I don't know about other fish. I went deep into all this stuff, man. I would have research papers up, industry manuals. I was running calculations on huge systems, figuring out how many pounds of worms you need for every pound of tilapia, how many pounds of calculating all these ratios. And I got, because I had to keep designing these fucking systems that nobody bought. Everyone's like, oh, I want an aquaponics system. I have a facility in Idaho. Let's get together. I'll get money. And I find that if they don't have the money, they're not getting the money. Because if they could get the money, they would have gotten the money. And your plan is not going to change that calculus because it's still an unproven plan, right? Someone has to commit to a pilot to test the plan. And people think, oh, it's just growing veggies. It's easy. Dude, it's the hardest thing in the world. It's the hardest thing in the world. Growing life? Are you kidding me? Enough to, in such a way to feed people, not just like as nature allows it. So, oh yeah, falling back into all that crazy shit. But this should be much simpler. The goal is to make this as simple as possible, and as cheap as possible. I know not everyone can afford $1,000. I'm sorry, I don't make these things myself, and if there's a cheaper way to do it, I'm all ears. And maybe you forgo the greenhouse, and maybe you just start with one tray and a small fish tank. I don't know because the challenge is in keeping the fish tank temperature stable. And the bigger the reservoir of water, the harder it'll swing in temperature. And the more it'll resist evaporation, or the longer it'll remain without needing being topped off. Because as you lose water, concentrations of chemicals in there increase. You're just losing water, so there's still the same amount of P in there or ammonia, and then now there's less water, so there's more ammonia per liter, right? Which is the concentration, and that fucks up fish's gills, and so it is a little challenging. I'm not gonna lie to you, and that's why most companies have failed in this space. Aquaponics is impossible to commercialize any other way than I'm doing now. Maybe I'll sell a manual or some digital product for some small fee, $5 or something. Um, Knowledge products might be the only way to go. I would happily share it free as well. Maybe, what I'll probably do is uh, share it for free if you like join the email list, just so when I do have something to sell, I can actually communicate it to you without paying YouTube or anyone else. Um, but that's what I'll do. That's my commitment. And now that I have a job that pays well, I don't have to fucking in the midst of this crash, which is crazy. I'm at like one of the fucking startups in the world that uh, has a business model and is going to raise a ton of money successfully. I've found an island. I've found that even in times of war and famine, not everyone dies. Most people survive, and most people don't get ruined financially. You know? Yes, it's bad for some people, but like it's not a guarantee that it's going to be bad for you. Like if you try, you can avoid the worst of it. Truly. I found out with that with the pandy and now with this. Um and so I think here's the thing, okay? Here's how you're going to make a ton of money. I really want my dream is to partner with a manufacturer to make all this stuff custom and sell it at retail stores nationwide for some small piece of that deal, small piece of revenue. And then help and train commercial pros on how to build a business installing these. I think greenhouse aquaponic farms are going to become the new pool, which is impossible to get installed right now because the shortage and the wait list and everything. So people spend 25, 50 grand on a pool easily. Instead, you could have a greenhouse that you could have drinks in. It could be the size of this entire patio. I could fit a table and have run water and have even a gas fireplace if I so wanted to. And it could be a lounge, and you can have an in-ground fish feature. You could have a set of growing of like vertical crops. Oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna put a strawberry tower here instead of the water system or the reservoir. I think I'm gonna move the reservoir here, and then I think here I'm gonna put a little workbench. Okay, okay, that's the move. Um, and you're gonna be able to hang out in your own Elysium, your own oasis, your own sanctuary. and someone's going to come and take care of it for you, and you're going to work as little or as much on it as you want. But the whole thing's going to be in symbiosis, and so it's naturally balanced. And so the person that comes every week or 2 weeks doesn't need to turn a bunch of knobs. Get the old in, get the old out, put the new in, adjust the water pH, add any supplements that are needed. Like, it's like a pool, almost a pool maintenance at a certain point. But people are going to be charging 50 grand for a big greenhouse, and it's going to cost maybe half that. I'm not kidding you. Once there's an understanding of how easy it is, the parts, pieces, the benefits, the service layer, like, fuck opening up a pool business, you know? Um, it's going to happen. 100% guarantee you it's going to happen. And might I add, this is the first you see this, by the way. I've scoured YouTube. None of this design, this approach does not exist on YouTube. If it does, please point me in the right direction so I can make a friend. You're going to see it everywhere now. Just like I didn't realize, I thought I have very low self-esteem. Okay, at my heart, I'm a piece of shit, and I think of myself very poorly. I as much bravado as I have, it's to compensate for low self-esteem. So I say one thing, but I feel another, and and I used to lament about how in the commercial, industrial vertical farm, I was there at the beginning, everyone was stealing my ideas. Then they raised the money, and my ideas withered and died. And I just could not be a part of it. It was wild. And thank God those losers are all going bankrupt. Fuck them all, man. Fuck them all. Businesses are not people. They can and should sometimes be killed. Like euthanasia, that bitch. You don't have to. The money's gonna find other places to go. You know what I'm saying? And no business ever in the history of the world lives forever. It grows, follows a biological maturation curve. At any rate, uh, there's been no new designs in aquaponics since I left. None. Nothing. It's a joke. You all have revenue. You have retail fronts, e-stores, and brick and mortar. You have molds. You have manufacturers that have made you stuff. And you haven't designed one new fucking thing. They're still selling plant trays that are this deep because they think you got to fill it with 8 fucking gallons of water. Dude, I got this down to a quarter inch of water. Like, they're literally pulling cathode ray tubes out of wire mainframes while we're in the era of the semiconductor. It's insane. It's insane. So hopefully this becomes ubiquitous, and hopefully you make it better, and hopefully you start growing your own food, because come on, man, World War III is here. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns? Drop me a line. I'll see you all later.